On August 24, 1991, when tanks were still rumbling through the streets of Moscow and the fate of a vast empire hung by a thread, something was unfolding in the basement of the Lubyanka building that neither the plotters nor the defenders of the White House knew about. Archivist Semyon Markovich Rubinstein, who had toiled for 32 years in this secret department, was methodically destroying documents in accordance with an order from above. The papers burned poorly. A thick folder, stamped with a faded "Top Secret" marking, slipped behind a metal filing cabinet. Semyon Markovich reached in to retrieve it and froze. Scrawled on the cover in black ink were the words "Operation Snowman," initiated by personal order of First Secretary Khrushchev, 1958. The old archivist knew the price of curiosity within these walls all too well. But the country was crumbling. The bosses had scattered, and pensioner Rubinstein was set to leave these premises for good in just a week. With trembling hands, he opened the folder. The first document made him sink straight down onto the cold floor. It was a report from the commander of Border Post Number 12, dated March 15th, 1959. I report that on the night of March 13th through 14th, a patrol under the command of Junior Sergeant Akhmedov discovered tracks of an unknown bipedal creature in the Akhbaital Pass area. Track size, 48 centimeters. The depth of the snow impression indicates a weight of approximately 200 kilograms. But the most shocking thing wasn't in the folder itself. It was the resolution scrawled in the margins, written in that bold handwriting familiar to the entire country. To Comrade Sirov, Ivan Alexandrovich, attend to this immediately. This is more important than space. N. Khrushchev. The spring of 1958 was a special one for the Soviet Union. The country hadn't yet recovered from the denunciation of the cult of personality, but it was already dreaming of the cosmos.
It was at this time, in the office of the first secretary of the CPSU Central Committee, that a meeting took place which would determine the fate of the USSR's most secret biological program. Academician Sergei Vladimirovich Obruchev, son of the famous explorer, stood before Khrushchev with a folder of photographs. Nikita Sergeyevich, known for his impulsiveness, examined the images with undisguised interest. "Comrade Khrushchev," the academician said, "over the last 3 years we've collected more than 400 testimonies from border guards, geologists, and local residents in the Tian Shan and Caucasus Mountains. All the descriptions match. A bipedal creature over 2 meters tall, covered in fur." Khrushchev looked up from the photo. "And what do the Americans know?" "According to our intelligence, they've already sent 2 expeditions to the Himalayas disguised as mountaineering trips." The first secretary rose from his desk and paced the office. "Sergei Vladimirovich, we'll launch a satellite. That's a matter of months. But if these creatures are real, you understand what that means? A living branch of evolution, parallel to humans. Imagine the advantage this would give us in understanding human nature, in medicine, in military affairs." And so began an operation about which even many Politburo members were unaware. To lead it, they appointed Professor Boris Fyodorovich Porshnev, a historian, philosopher, and passionate enthusiast in the search for relic hominids. The first expedition set out for the Pamir Mountains on June 5, 1958. It wasn't just scientists on board. Major of State Security Georgy Stepanovich Karpov, an officer with experience operating in Tibet, led a special security detail. Officially, the group was dubbed the Pamir Biological Detachment of the USSR Academy of Sciences. The village of Pshart in the Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Region became the searchers' first base camp.
The local Tajiks eyed the newcomers warily, but the gold watch that the expedition leader gifted to the village elder unlocked plenty of doors and loosened plenty of tongues. A 70-year-old shepherd named Rahimaka, puffing on his pipe, spun tales. "Gulevan, that's what we call him, the wild man. My granddad saw one, my father saw one, and I've seen one myself."
Back in 1943, when the Germans pushed all the way to the Volga, a Gulevan came down to our sheepfolds. It tore into one of the sheep. Me and my brothers gave chase, but fat chance we had. It bounded over the rocks like a mountain goat, and those tracks. The old man spread his hands wide, as big as 2 of my feet. Professor Porshnev meticulously jotted down every word. But the real breakthrough came 2 weeks later, when the expedition's radio operator, Volodya Sinitsyn, was tuning an antenna on a mountainside slope. "Boris Fyodorovich!" His shout echoed through the camp. "Get over here, quick!" On the glacier, just 300 meters from base, fresh tracks stood out clear as day. Not human, not bear, but something in between. The plaster casts made that day are still locked away in a secure vault, under an inventory number known to only 3 people. But the most crucial event unfolded at border post number 12. The post commander, Captain Viktor Pavlovich Terenkov, had received a top-secret directive straight from Moscow. He lined up his troops. "Comrades, starting today, anyone who spots anything out of the ordinary, tracks, sounds, whatever, reports it immediately. This is a matter of utmost state importance." Junior Sergeant Rashid Akhmedov, a young guy from Fergana, took the order to heart. On the night of July 27th, he was leading his patrol along the border trail. The moon was shining bright, turning the snow as clear as daylight. Private Petrov was the first to freeze. "Comrade Junior Sergeant, something's moving out there." Through his binoculars, Akhmedov caught sight of a figure.
It was walking upright, but it sure wasn't human. Too bulky, too hunched. And that gait, the thing moved across the snow without sinking in, like a skier gliding on powder. "Halt! Who goes there?" Akhmedov bellowed, straight out of the regs. The figure stopped dead, turned. In the moonlight, its eyes flashed. Then it leaped, 5 meters in one bound, then another, and vanished behind a rocky outcrop. By morning, Captain Terenkov himself arrived on site, with Professor Porshnev in tow. They spent 3 hours measuring, photographing, and sketching that track. It went down in the annals as the Pamir imprint of '59. Back in Moscow, Khrushchev pored over the reports personally. At one presidium of the Central Committee meeting, after the main agenda wrapped up, Nikita Sergeyevich dropped it casually. "Comrades, word is our scientists are on the verge of a major biological breakthrough. We're allocating extra funding. Sirov, keep an eye on it." Ivan Alexandrovich Sirov, chairman of the KGB, gave a curt nod. He knew exactly what was being discussed. His agency had already stood up a dedicated unit, codename Leshy. In the fall of 1959, an incident occurred that was kept under wraps even from top brass for decades. At border post number 12, something went down that the guards stayed mum about for 30 long years. On that very night when the ruckus hit the Pamir outpost, back in Washington at the Langley headquarters, an emergency briefing was underway. CIA Director Alan Dulles pored over satellite photos of the Soviet expedition in the Pamirs. "Gentlemen," he addressed the room, "the Russians are hunting for something in those mountains, and it ain't geological surveys. Too many troops. Too damn classified." Seated at the table was an unusual guest for such a high-level huddle. Tom Slick, the Texas oil baron. The millionaire, notorious for his cryptozoology obsession, served as the agency's unofficial advisor on out there projects. "Mr. Dulles," Slick drawled, "my contacts in Nepal are reporting weird Soviet agent activity.
They're buying up every scrap of intel on the Yeti, paying in gold for any whisper. And just like that, Operation White Bear kicked off, the US program to track down the abominable snowman. On paper, Slick's Himalayan jaunt was bankrolled from his own deep pockets. In reality, the CIA ponied up $2 million. Come spring 1960, the American team pitched their base camp at Everest's foothills. It wasn't just eggheads and climbers in the mix. Major John Reed of the Marines, officially retired, ran point on security. Soviet intel got wind of the op while it was still in the planning stages. KGB First Chief Directorate Colonel Mikhail Petrovich Korotkov, embedded undercover in India's Delhi, drew the short straw: infiltrate the Yankee camp. His cover was straightforward: a white Russian émigré named Mikhail Petrov, son of a Tsarist officer, avid mountaineer willing to guide for greenbacks. The Americans bought it hook, line, and sinker. By April 15th, Korotkov as Petrov was knocking back whiskey in Tom Slick's tent. "Mr. Slick," the faux émigré said, his accent polished to a sheen in rehearsals. "The local Sherpas are scared stiff to pull the wool over your eyes, but they clam up on the truth, too. The Yeti? To them, it's a holy beast." Slick cut straight to it. "Can you help? For the right price? You bet. I've got pull at Tiangboche Monastery. That's where they've stashed what you're after." 3 days later, the expedition pushed toward the monastery. What they found there blew every expectation out of the water. The abbot, palms greased with a fat donation, led the Americans into a hidden chamber. There, on the altar, lay a scalp, reddish fur, weird conical shape. The monks swore it was Yeti hide, peeled from one killed 2 centuries back. Slick whipped out his checkbook. 10 grand for research rights on the scalp.
While the Yanks haggled with the holy men, Korotkov snapped a few photos and even yanked a couple of hairs for lab work. That night, he passed them down the chain to his handler. A week later, in Moscow's Institute of Evolutionary Morphology lab, Professor Astapov hunched over the samples under a microscope. "Comrade Sirov," he briefed the KGB chairman, "the hair structure's one of a kind. Not human, some unknown ape, but definitely a primate. Sample's age checks out at about 200 years. Meanwhile, the Americans pressed deeper into the Himalayas. On May 9, the day the USSR celebrated Victory Day, their expedition made a discovery that nearly rewrote history. Sherpa guide Tenzing Gyatso led the group to a cave at 4,200 meters. "Sahib," he whispered to Slick, "Yeti lives here. Saw it yesterday. Left at dawn." The cave was lived in. A nest of branches, animal bones, and, most crucially, a handprint on the wall. An enormous palm with an opposable thumb. Major Reed pulled out his portable radio. "Base, this is Snow Leopard. We've found the den. I repeat, found the den." Back at Langley, alarms went off. If the snowman existed, if it could be captured, the military research potential was limitless. Studying the physiology of a creature built to thrive in extreme high-altitude conditions could revolutionize soldier training for the space program. But the Americans had no clue that just 2 kilometers away on the next ridge, a Soviet team had been hunkered down for 3 days. GRU Major Vasily Nikolaevich Topolin and 5 Spetsnaz operatives were shadowing Slick's every move. On May 14, a rendezvous went down that both sides later denied ever happened. On a glacier in the neutral zone between Nepal and Tibet, Topolin and Reed faced off. "Major," the American said in Russian, "we both know why we're here. How about we don't get in each other's way?" Topolin smirked.
"Or maybe we share intel? You've got that cave, and we've got the monastery analyses." The 2 Cold War officers locked eyes. Then Reed pulled out his whiskey flask. Topilin offered his vodka. They drank in silence. "If we catch one," the American said, "the world's never going to be the same." "If we catch one," the Russian replied, "it's our shared curse." But that night, something went down that forced both teams to hightail it out of the area. At 3 a.m., a howl ripped through both the American and Soviet camps simultaneously. Not wolf, not leopard. Something halfway between a human scream and a guerrilla roar. The American sentry, Private Smith, spotted them first. 3 figures at the edge of the firelight. Massive, fur-covered. They just stood there, watching the camp. "Intruders!" Smith bellowed, grabbing his rifle. Gunfire echoed off the peaks, but by the time the rest arrived, only tracks remained on the snow. Enormous, 50-centimeter prints. In the Soviet camp at the same moment, fighter Sidorov reported to Major Topilin, "Comrade Major, they were here. 3 of them. Stood for 5 minutes, then left. Why didn't you shoot?" "Because, Comrade Major, they weren't threatening. They just watched. And those eyes. Human eyes." By morning, both expeditions discovered the same thing. All their food stores had vanished from the camps. Neatly removed, not scattered, and a note on birch bark, identical in both sites. Symbols resembling Tibetan script, but not quite. A monk from Tiangboche Monastery, shown a photo of the note, went pale. Ancient script. The Yeti warn. Leave. This is their land. Tom Slick wanted to press on with the hunt, but Major Reed was adamant. "Sir, we're losing men. Altitude sickness, frostbite. And these things? They're smarter than we thought. We need to pull out." The Soviet team reached the same conclusion, but Korotkov had one last sit-down with Slick in Delhi. "Mr. Petrov," the millionaire said to the faux Russian émigré, "I know who you really are." Korotkov tensed. "And you know who I am," Slick pressed on. "Let's cut the crap. These creatures are real and they're intelligent. Our governments, yours and mine, they'll try to hunt them down, weaponize them. But maybe some things are better left alone." The KGB colonel stayed silent. "I'm shutting down the program," Slick declared. "Officially, lack of results. What you tell your bosses, that's on you. But think about it, Colonel Korotkov. What happens if we bag one of them? Vivisections, experiments, attempts to crossbreed with humans?" They shook hands. They never crossed paths again. Tom Slick died 7 years later under mysterious circumstances. A private plane crash. Korotkov rose to general and passed away in his own bed in 2003, taking all his secrets to the grave. But the Americans had no idea that Soviet scientists were already holding in their hands something that upended every notion about the Yeti. In the summer of 1963, an unusual report landed on the desks of the KGB's Leshy division. A local beat cop from the Abkhazian village of Tikhina wired in. Over the past year, 147 villagers have spotted the Forest Man. The village of Tikhina nestles in a mountain valley 40 kilometers from Sukhumi. 400 homes, 2,000 souls, one shared secret. When the task force, led by State Security Major Alexander Pavlovich Topilin, rolled into the village, they hit a wall of silence. Only after the local cop, Vazha Gugwa, an Abkhazian who knew the customs inside out, huddled with the elders, did the ice break. 85-year-old Mamuka Kvitsinia, the village elder, lit his pipe and began his tale. "This didn't start yesterday, Major, sir. My grandma, God rest her soul, used to spin yarns about Zana. Back in the 1850s, they caught a wild woman in the woods, huge, strong as an ox, covered head to toe in hair. Prince Ejgi Janaba kept her like a pet, chained up, lived like a dog." Topilin flipped open his notebook. "What became of her?" "She lasted 20 years with the prince, bore him kids." "Kids? From who?" The old man paused, took a long drag. "Different men from the village. The prince got his kicks, forced it. She had 4. 2 died as babies, 2 made it. Their blood runs in the village to this day. The major exchanged a glance with the expedition's scientific advisor, geneticist Boris Lvovich Astapov. "We could run some tests." "Worth a shot," the professor agreed with a nod. They tracked down Zana's descendants quick. Kvitbekia, a 70-year-old kolkhoz worker and grandson of the wild woman herself, built like a tank, pushing 2 meters tall, with arms too damn long for his frame. His nephew, Shaliko, a bit younger but cut from the same cloth. "I don't remember Grandma Zana," Kvit recounted. "She kicked off in the 1880s. But my old man, Chingis, her son, he was something else. Strength like you wouldn't believe. Could budge a 200-kilo rock off the spot, and the cold didn't faze him. He'd take a dip in the river come winter." Professor Astapov collected blood, saliva, hair samples. What the Moscow lab analyses revealed? Pure dynamite. The mitochondrial DNA pointed to an unknown lineage that had branched off from Homo sapiens around 100,000 years ago. "Comrade Topilin," the professor explained. "This isn't Neanderthal, nor Denisovan. It's a third branch, a relic population of ancient hominids that survived on the Caucasus." But the real bombshell was yet to come. Young shepherd Rezo Voratskelia, 3 sheets to the wind on Cha-Cha, let it slip. "Zana's dead, but her kin's still up in the mountains. We call 'em Obnawa. Every fall they come down, swipe some corn. My granddad had a deal with 'em, left 'em a share of the harvest. They never touched the livestock." Topilin latched onto that thread. "Where? Where do they come down?" Rezo sobered up in a heartbeat. "Ain't sayin'."
"My folks'll kill me. They had to get creative with some fieldwork tradecraft. Set up surveillance on the shepherd. On August 27, Rezo herded his flock up into the hills. Topolin's team trailed at a distance. On the third day, at 2,000 meters in a dense beech forest, Rezo stopped at a clearing, pulled corn cobs from his sack, laid him out on the rocks, and whistled 3 times. Then he hightailed it out. Topolin's crew hunkered down in the brush. They waited 4 hours. The sun was dipping low when they emerged from the woods. 3 of them. The male stood about 2 meters 10, covered in brown fur. The female, a touch smaller, and a teenage juvenile. Lieutenant Sidorenko raised his camera rifle, clicked the shutter. The creatures froze, heads snapping toward the sound. That's when Topolin clocked their eyes. Brown, human, brimming with intelligence and fear. The male let out a low, guttural rumble. The family bolted into the trees, but the shots were in the can. 36 frames that labs across the board pored over for years. "We gotta catch one," Colonel Sirov insisted, jetting in from Moscow. "Alive, for science." They greenlit the capture op for September 5th, rolled in a company of internal troops to the village under the guise of exercises, ringed the forest, sealed every trail. But come the night of the 4th, panic hit the village. Folks bolted awake to howls, dozens of voices echoing like a chorus from hell. The creatures had the place surrounded, wailing through the dark. Come morning, Elder Kvitsinia showed up at Topolin's door. "Pack it in, Major. That's your warning. Last one. They protect their own. Always have. No one saw those German troops again after they pushed into the woods." In 1853, a Turkish outfit rolled in. Slavers. Out of 50 men, 3 staggered back, out of their minds. "Babushka tails," Sirov snapped. But September 5th? Total washout. The troops combed the woods. Nada. Just a message on the clearing where they'd left the corn. Stones laid out in a cross, bear skull smack in the middle. "They're smarter than we figured," Professor Ostapov mused. A hell of a lot smarter. October brought a fresh crew to the village. No grunts this time. Anthropologists, eggheads. Doctor of Sciences Maria Nikolaevna Shukshina, expert on primitive cultures, pitched a new play. Don't hunt. Observe. Study. Make contact. All fall, she holed up in a forest cabin with 2 grad students, leaving out food, tools, even toys. And one day, it worked. On November 15th, a camera rigged at the clearing caught it. A young female Obnawa approached the laid-out items, picked up a hand mirror, stared into it for ages, then grabbed a bright scarf, tied it around her head, and smiled. "They're capable of aesthetic perception," Shukshina gushed at a closed Academy of Sciences session.
This isn't an animal. It's an alternative branch of intelligence. But in December 1965, the Tikhina program got axed out of nowhere. Suits rolled into the village, rounded up all the folks in the club. "Comrades," the nameless man droned, "due to construction of a new reservoir, your village is slated for relocation. Every family gets a fresh house in Sukhumi or Gagra, plus compensation and moving stipends." In 3 months, the place was a ghost town. Roads bulldozed, the district sealed off. Supposedly a water protection zone. Truth was, a secret biological station operated there right up through the 80s. What they poked at? No one knows. Archives torched in 91. Maria Nikolaevna Shukshina landed in the psych ward a year after the shutdown, diagnosed with acute psychosis. Died in 1970. In her delirium, she kept muttering, "They're coming for us. We broke the pact. They're coming." Kavit Sebekia, Zana's grandson, turned up dead in the woods in 72. Official story? Mauled by a bear.
But the old game warden who saw the body whispered, "No damn bear did that. Hands, huge hands, did him in." Tikhina village? Never rebuilt. Maps mark it as uninhabited, but foragers from nearby hamlets still swap tales. Lights flickering there. Voices that ain't human, but ain't beastly neither. And the old-timers? They remember that night the docs in military gear showed up. On a frosty February morning in 1967, the Kremlin hotline rang in the office of KGB 4th Directorate Chief Lieutenant General Oleg Mikhailovich Gribanov. Oleg Mikhailovich. Chairman Andropov's voice carried an uncharacteristic edge of nerves. "To me, now, and bring every scrap on Operation Leshy." An hour later, 4 men crammed into Andropov's office. The chairman himself, Gribanov, academician Mstislav Vsevolodovich Keldysh, and a grizzled senior officer in general's kit but no insignia, unknown to Gribanov. "Comrades," Andropov kicked off, "what you're about to hear is Politburo eyes only. General Colonel Kazantsov will brief." The old general cleared his throat. "In 1908, I was a young Tsarist army officer, stationed in Tomsk. June 30th, we got the scramble. Cataclysmic blast in the Podkamennaya Tunguska region. Yield like 1,000 Hiroshimas." Gribanov knew the Tunguska meteor yarn, but what the hell did that have to do with? "I was on the first expedition," the general pressed on. "What we found? Walked down for good. Yeah, epicenter. 2,000 square clicks of flattened forest. But no meteor. None at all. Just tracks." "What kind of tracks?" Gribanov couldn't hold back. "Footprints. Hundreds of them. Like a whole tribe of giants hightailing it out from ground zero. And the Evenki, the local folks, spun yarns about Iron Men who dropped from the sky a few days before the blast. Huge. Covered in iron fur. That's how they put it." Andropov pulled out a folder of photos. "These are shots from Tikhina. And these? Sketches from 1908, straight from the General Staff Archives." Compare them. The tracks match, identical. "We believe," academician Keldysh said, "that the Tunguska event ties back to these creatures. Could have been an off-world contact gone sideways, an evacuation, or something we flat out don't get." "Mission clear." Andropov eyed Gribanov. "Mountain expedition. Max secrecy. Cover, geological survey." On March 15, 1967, an AN-12 transport dumped the team in Vanavara, the outpost closest to Blast Central. Leading the op was KGB Colonel Viktor Stepanovich Mazarov, a former spook with killer survival chops in hellish spots. Crew included biologist Astapov, nuclear physicist Kurchatov, namesake of the big shot academician, physician-geneticist Voronova, and 5 Spetsnaz hard cases. Guides? Local Evenki brothers, the Monkos. 70-year-old Ulukitkin Monko remembered the boom. "I was 10 winters old. Morning sky split wide. Reindeer dropped dead. Yurts went up in flames. Then the Chechonya came." "Who the hell are the Chechonya?" Mazarov asked through the translator. "Wild men. Big, tough sons of bitches. After the fire from the heavens, there were more of them. Rare sightings before. Then every summer. Run-ins." March 25th, the expedition hit the epicenter. Even after 59 years, the site hit like a gut punch. Dead forest of radially toppled trunks spidering out for tens of clicks.
Dead center, where calcs pegged the meteor crater, loomed an anomaly zone. Instruments pegged the needle, not radiation, something else. Magnetic field bucking like a bronco, compasses spinning wild. "Check this out," yelled junior researcher Petrov. In the permafrost, 2 meters down, they unearthed the impossible. A track. Massive 5-toed footprint in a layer that screamed at least a century old. "No way," Dr. Voronova whispered. "Permafrost untouched. The print's older than the blast." The Monko brothers swapped looks. The elder, Ulukitkin, piped up. "My granddad said, Chechonya been here forever, back when mammoths roamed."
But after the Skyfire, more showed up. And they changed. Changed how? Mazarov pressed. Smarter. Granddad saw him strike fire with iron. Not friction. Iron. And they talk sometimes. Not our tongue, but they talk. April 3rd delivered the payoff that justified the whole shebang. Petrov and Voronova, running readings 2 clicks from camp, stumbled on a cave. Entrance hacked wider by hand, no doubt. Inside, Mazarov rewrote his report 3 times, groping for words. Cave art, but no stick-figure caveman crap. Schematics, blueprints, equations, and one repeating symbol, a circle with rays fanning out. "It's a map," Kurchatov whooped. "Look, epicenter right here, rivers, hills, and dates. Not ours, but it's a timeline, sure as hell." Academician Keldysh, poring over the photos back in Moscow, reached a conclusion. Someone had been documenting the blast's aftermath, year after year, and that someone understood what went down, better than we ever would. But the crown jewel waited till late April. The expedition was packing up to bug out when the Monko brothers dragged a guest into camp. An ancient Evenki, age impossible to peg, wrinkled like the bark on a millennium-old larch. Name Amaka. Grandpa in Evenki. "I'm the last one who remembers the pact," he said through the translator. "The pact with the forest folk." Mazarov hit record on the tape deck. "Tell us about the pact. After the fire from the sky, the forest people came to our camps. No attacks, just stood and waited. My great-granddad was the shaman. He went out to 'em. 3 days they jawed. Not words, but signs, drawings in the dirt. The old man fished out a birch bark scroll from inside his coat. The pact itself. We don't go to their spots, they don't mess with our herds. We leave salt and iron on the sacred rock. They leave us medicine." Medicine? Special moss. Cures any ailment. Last batch I took in 53. Saved my grandson from whooping cough. Mazarov flashed him the Tukina track photos. "These them?" The elder stared long and hard, then nodded. "Yeah. But only Amaka." He trailed off. "They're heading farther north. Say they'll clear out for good soon. Too many people now, too noisy. Iron birds in the sky. They hate 'em." On the last night before Wheels Up, the sentry shook Mazarov awake. "Comrade Colonel, out there, edge of camp." In the firelight loomed a figure, massive, stock still. Mazarov eased up slow, took a step forward. The thing didn't twitch. "Hold fire," the colonel murmured. They locked eyes, man and not man. Then the creature raised a hand in some odd gesture, not menace, more like a farewell, and melted into the dark. Come dawn, where it stood, a rock, plain-looking but carved with symbols, same as in the cave. Back in Novosibirsk, at the blacked-out NEI 47, officially permafrost research, they spun up a lab, Project Relict. Ostapov and Voronova spent 2 years cracking the code on those glyphs. "It's a message," Voronova finally spilled at a sealed briefing. "They're trying to tell us something, warn us. Details fuzzy, but the recurring theme's danger. And one number, everywhere. 2030. Academician Vernadsky, roped in as consultant, floated a theory. Suppose they're a parallel evolutionary line, older than us. What if they've already been through what we're barreling toward? Tech meltdowns, nuclear dust-ups, eco-collapse, and now they're sounding the alarm. What they dug out of the glacier at 47 meters depth? That lit a fire under Brezhnev. Emergency Politburo huddle. What they pulled from the glacier at 47 meters? It flipped every Soviet bigwig's script on the snowman. A body, pristine, locked in permafrost. A hominid pushing 2.3 meters, blanketed in rosy brown fur. They choppered the find straight to Moscow on a special bird. In the basement of the Institute of Evolutionary Morphology, the country's top experts assembled. The autopsy was led by academician Vladimir Petrovich Mikhailov himself, the legend of Soviet anthropology.
"Gentlemen," he said, slipping on his gloves, "we're witnessing a historic moment. Carbon-14 dating pegged the creature at about 300 years old. It had died well before the Tunguska blast, but already in the gunpowder era. The scalpel sliced into the flesh. What they found inside made the scientists exchange uneasy glances. The brain. Cranial capacity, 1,800 cubic centimeters. Bigger than a modern human's. Impossible, neurophysiologist Sergeyev whispered. With a brain that size, they should have built a civilization. Maybe they did, Mikhailov murmured. Just not one like ours. But the glacier had only loaned them this specimen. The real hunt for a live one kicked off in the spring of 1971. KGB Major Rustam Kerimov, a Tajik who knew the terrain and dialects like the back of his hand, took charge of Operation Snow Leopard. Base camp, the village of Langar, right on the Afghan border. Officially, a border outpost. In truth, HQ for the most audacious cryptozoological expedition ever mounted. Kerimov's team, 12 men, the cream of Soviet Spetsnaz. Each had trained in high-altitude hell. Each signed an NDA binding till 2050. May 5th. Operation Go. Local shepherds tipped them off. Golovon sighted near Kargush Pass. A whole family. Comrades, officers, Kerimov briefed his men. Objective, take 'em alive. Tranquilizer darts only. Remember, this ain't a hunt. It's contact with another form of intelligence. 72 days in the mountains. Kerimov's diary, declassified only in 2021, reads like a pulp adventure thriller. Day 15. Found a bedding site. Grass trampled, scraps of food, roots, berries, bones. Surveyor Volkov says snow leopard bones. Killed barehanded. What kind of strength? Day 28. Spotted them. 3 adults, 1 juvenile. Observed from 500 meters through binos. Male clocked us but didn't bolt, just stood and stared. Then said something to the others. Articulate sounds, clear as day.
They withdrew in formation, shielding the kid. Day 43. Breakthrough. Young female tumbled into a natural crevasse, not one of our traps. Busted her leg. Senior Lieutenant Safarov rappelled down, hit her with a sedative dart. She didn't fight, just locked eyes and cried. God help me, human tears. They choppered the female to Dushanbe. The military hospital was primed. Ward 6 in the sealed wing. Access for 5 cleared souls only. Nurse Valentina Rybakova, bound by her own NDA, kept a forbidden journal, one she stashed away and slipped to her daughter only on her deathbed in 2018. First week. Patient, banned from calling it a creature, is conscious but won't engage, won't touch our food. Dr. Vorontsov in a tailspin. She'll starve. Second week. Breakthrough. Took an apple from my hand, then pointed at the water. When I brought it, she said, "Yes," she said. Something like, "Vaka." She's trying to communicate. Third week. She's drawing. Gave her paper and pencils. Sketches mountains, others like her, and people. Little stick figures down below, big ones up top. Like she's laying out a hierarchy. Fifth week. Unbelievable. She's picked up about 50 simple words, but they're words. Water, food, cold, hurt, and a name. She pointed to herself and said, Almaz. We call her Alma. Professor of Linguistics, Nikolai Yakovlevich Mar Jr., son of the repressed academician, was yanked from exile in a hurry. This is incredible, he said after his first session with Alma. She's got a language. Primitive, about 300 concept words, but it's a language. Structure's archaic,
like Proto-Indo-European mashed up with something totally alien. Alma lasted 3 months in the hospital. In that time, she sketched a detailed map of her kind's habitats: Pamirs, Tian Shan, Altai, Science, Caucasus, and beyond. Alaska, Canada, Himalayas. They're all over the world, General Andropov marveled at the classified briefing.
A whole parallel civilization. But on August 20, something went down that got locked away for 50 years.
Nighttime. Alma rose from her bed. Cameras caught it. She padded to the locked door and popped it open. No key. Just ran her hand over the lock and it clicked free. Guards hit the alarm, but Alma didn't bolt. She stepped out into the hospital courtyard and let loose a sound. Low, vibrating hum that the gear recorded, but pitched beyond human hearing. 15 minutes later, they arrived. 7 of them. Towering shapes ringed the building. Troops loosed tranq darts, but the creatures moved like lightning. Colonel Karamov barked, "Cease fire! Don't shoot! They're here for their own." Alma headed for her kin. At the gate, she turned back. Nurse Valentina swore it later. Alma smiled and waved. Human-style wave. A goodbye. Then they melted away, all 8 of them, into the night, vanishing as sudden as they'd shown. Morning. In Alma's room, a drawing. A human and a diamond shaking hands. Symbols scrawled below. Professor Ma cracked it later. Soon. 3 months the patient stayed in the hospital. Until that thing happened. The one sealed for 50 years. 1974. Brezhnev's already ailing, but still gripping the reins tight. After the Dushanbe dust-up, they didn't shutter Operation Leshy, just flipped the script. New KGB chairman Yuri Vladimirovich Andropov took personal oversight. Comrades, he laid out at the blacked-out powwow. Dushanbe proved it. They're intelligent, organized, got abilities we don't savvy. But contact's possible. We need a fresh angle. Altai got the nod for the next expedition. Reasons stacked up. Far from borders, sparse population. And key, per Alma's decoded map, it hosted the biggest relic hominid settlement in the USSR. They tapped Colonel Mikhail Petrovich Sidorov to lead, a one-of-a-kind operator. Military intel vet, polyglot, ethnographer. He'd spent 2 years living among Amazonian tribes, studying primitive cultures.
My job isn't to catch him, Sidorov explained to his team. My job's to understand, and to be understood. The crew, 11 souls. Besides the military brass, there was linguist Mar, biologist Astapov, psychologist Karina Volkova, and one total curveball, shaman Karagay. A 70-year-old Altai native, the last true shaman of his line, slotted in by Andropov's personal fiat. Turns out, the KGB had been compiling files for years on shamans claiming chats with the mountain spirits. "I've known the Almas for 40 winters," Karagay said through the interpreter. "My granddad taught me. They're the elder brothers. Here before us, here after us." The expedition rolled into the Karakol Tract on July 15. Spot picked for a reason. Ancient petroglyphs the locals dubbed Alma's script. Doctor of Historical Sciences Sergei Ivanovich Rudenko, Siberian ancient cultures whiz, had been eyeballing the rock art for 3 weeks straight. "Can't explain this," he told Sidorov. "Drawings clock in at about 40,000 years old. But the abstraction level? Look, it's a star map, plain as day. And this? Some kind of schematic.
Biological cycle, maybe? Karagay sidled up to the cliff face, ran a hand over the etchings. Their history, how they came from the stars, taught folks, then holed up in the mountains when people turned mean. From the stars, Sidorov echoed. The shaman shrugged. That's what the elders said. Almas are sky and earth children. Not ours, not outsiders, just other. July 28. Karagay ran his ritual. All night, thumping the drum, throat singing, burning juniper. At dawn, they'll come. Third night after the new moon. 3 of them. Sidorov, the skeptic, bit his tongue. Years in the Amazon had drilled in respect for the unknowable. August 3rd. Moonless black. Motion sensors pinged. 3 warm-blooded bipeds closing in. Hold position, Sidorov ordered. No touching weapons, no matter what. They stepped into the firelight.
3 of them. Massive, furred, but with a grace and poise that hit like poetry. The elder, silver threading his pelt, carried something in his paws. Karagay rose, bowed. The creature returned it, then set down his bundle by the flames. A clutch of roots, a leather pouch. The shaman offered his drum. The thing took it, inspected the hide, ran a paw over it, struck. The rhythm? Complex, alien to human ears, but hypnotic as hell. Record it, Sidorov whispered to the tech. Every beat. The weird jam session stretched an hour. Creatures drumming, Karagay chanting, then they joined in, low gutturals weaving into melody. Dawn broke, the visitors dipped. But before ghosting, the elder approached Sidorov. The colonel froze. The beast extended a paw, huge, furred, but unmistakably a hand, and they shook. Man and not man, grip firm. The pouch? Seeds from unknown plants, a chunk of ore. Moscow Labs ran it, an alloy that shouldn't exist. 9 metals, including rare earths, fused by a method unknown to modern metallurgy. They possess technologies, Sidorov reported to Andropov. Not ours, but technologies. Possibly biotech. The plants from their seeds sprouted in a week and pack compounds with unique properties. The expedition dragged on till October. 4 more contacts went down in that span. The creatures brought gifts, odd artifacts, seeds, stones etched with symbols. The humans reciprocated, tools, fabrics, salt. But October 15th, everything went sideways. An unscheduled crew rolled in, geologists from Novosibirsk, young bucks, loudmouths with transistor radios and guitars blasting. That night, the Almas showed one last time, but not at the fire. They lined the mountainside. All 7 the expedition had clocked over the contacts, and they howled. Long, mournful wails. Karagay went ashen. It's a goodbye. They're leaving. Humans broke the silence. The Almas are pulling deeper into the peaks. Sidorov tried to bridge it, left offerings. Karagay drummed 3 nights straight. Useless. October 25th. Tragedy struck. Junior researcher Petrov and Corporal Tarkmetov headed out to plant sensors and never came back. Searched a week. Found only Petrov's rucksack and his tape recorder. The reel captured their final minutes. Petrov's voice. Unbelievable. Dozens of them here. They're building something. My God, it's a whole settlement. Akhmetov, film it! Film it! Then screams. And voices. Strange voices. A chorus, jabbering in some unknowable tongue. Linguist Mar chewed on the tape for a month. It's a language. Complex. Structured. About 1,000 distinct phonemes. They're debating, sounds like. Debating what to do about us. And the verdict? Not in our favor. Never found Petrov or Akhmetov's bodies. Nor the settlement. Like it never existed. November. Expedition folded. In his final report, Sidorov wrote, "Contact achieved, but we blew it. They're open to talk, on their terms. We crashed their world uninvited. Recommend shelving the program. Minimum 10 years." Andropov signed off, but the expedition files kept churning under microscopes. Especially Petrov's tape. Voices crystal clear on the recording, but linguists never pinned the language. The link between the Soviet space program and the snowman hunt? One of the USSR's most ironclad secrets. It kicked off in 1979, when cosmonaut Georgy Mikhailovich Grechko splashed down from Salyut 6.
At the sealed flight debrief in Mission Control, Grechko dropped it cold. "Comrades, I've got to report something. On orbit 1412, over the Pamirs, instruments lit up an anomaly. Heat signatures, in a no-go zone for settlements." Flight Director Alexei Eliseyev scowled. "Why the delay in reporting?" "Alexei Stanislavovich, I triple-checked. Not hardware, not geology. Biologicals, moving in organized packs. Body temps 2 to 3 degrees above human baseline." The intel shot straight to the KGB.
Andropov, now General Secretary, but never one to forget his old fascination with Operation Leshy, issued the order, "Tap space assets. Find them. Find every last one." Turns out, the Space Yeti link ran way deeper than anyone guessed. In Sergei Pavlovich Korolev's personal archives, stashed away only after the chief designer's death, they unearthed jaw-dropping docs. Diary entry, March 15, 1962. Met with Professor Porshnev. Remarkable man, remarkable ideas. If relic hominids exist and thrive in high-altitude hell without tech crutches, studying their physiology could crack human adaptation to extremes. Space. Mars. Gotta think on this. And Korolev did. At NII 88, amid the rocket blueprints, a blacked-out bioresearch wing popped up. Officially, zero-G effects on the body. Off the books, Project Adaptation. Dr. Irina Borisovna Kozlova, Astopov's star pupil, took the helm. Sergei Pavlovich figured evolution had already solved puzzles we were fumbling with gadgets. Almus thermoregulation, their knack for scraping by on thin air, ready-made fixes for cosmonauts. The Cosmos 1247 series birds lofted in 1980, and Cosmos 1381 the same year, they packed more than mil-spec gear. Next-gen thermal imagers, tuned to sniff out biosigns with specific specs. Major Vladimir Zhanabekov, future cosmonaut, pulled shifts in mission control back then. We were pulling weird reads, heat blooms in ghost towns, roving packs in spots no human could hack. Pamirs, Tibet, Alaska, Canada. The map lined up perfect with the one Alma sketched in Dushanbe. But the real mind-blower surfaced in academician Valentin Petrovich Glushko's archives after his 1989 passing. Folder, Project Alternative. Inside, calcs, schematics, and a batshit wild concept. Glushko pitched a Mars outpost modeled on relic hominid social setups. They survive in groups, he scribbled, not tech. Social structure and bioadaptation. What if we gene tweak humans with their DNA? Birth Homo cosmicus. And get this, real genetic math grounded in Zana descendants' samples and Dushanbe scraps. Then, 1982, Baikonur incident. Swept under the rug, but it ties straight into our tale. Pad 31, prepping the secret Cosmos 1415 bird. Last-minute tweak, new orbit slicing over key Altai hotspots. Night before liftoff, guards clocked intruders on base grounds. No sign of them, just tracks. Those 50-centimeter tracks. Come morning, they found the satellite seals busted wide open, the gear tampered with, not smashed, rewired, upgraded like it was nothing. Scrubbed the launch on the spot. For 3 months, the top eggheads dissected what the hell had happened to the hardware. The verdict? A gut punch. Someone had rejiggered the targeting system to blind the bird over specific zones, like carving out no-fly dead spots for surveillance. You can't pull that off without insider-level know-how on our tech, Lieutenant General Kirimov, the Cosmodrome boss, griped. But the how of it? Even crazier. 0 tool marks. Like it was done by hand. KGB launched a full probe. Conclusion? The research subjects themselves had snuck onto base. They knew about the satellite, knew its mission, and they weren't about to get caught in the crosshairs. Cosmonaut Grechko spilled more after retiring in a 2010 interview. I saw him from space. Not the bodies, but the handiwork.
structures popping up and vanishing in the peaks, trails that only glow in infrared. They know how to ghost us. And you know what? Damn right they do. The final stab at orbital Almas hunting went down in 1988. Next-gen bird loaded with kit to ping individual biosigns. 2 weeks post-liftoff, total blackout. Official line, meteor hit. Off the record, mission control still squirrels away the last snapshot the sat beamed down. A cluster of hominids perched on a mountaintop, one clutching something aimed skyward. Something that looked an awful lot like a weapon.
They canned the Spacewatch program for the Almas after that, but in academician Glushko's private safe, cracked open post-mortem, they found more buried treasure. A folder stamped Eyes Only, Afghanistan. Inside, reports from the Soviet limited contingent, stuff that never hit the official tallies. 1984, Nuristan Province, Pakistan border. Recon Squad Cascade, under Captain Andrei Volkov, was tailing a Mujahideen mule train packing American Stingers. Senior Sergeant Mamedov, an Azerbaijani who spoke the local lingo cold, got the first whisper from a captured fighter. The weapons won't make it. The maidens won't let them through. What maidens? Mamedov pressed. Mountain maidens. They hole up in the Tora Bora caves. The fighters pay tribute, food, cloth, or the maidens kill. Silent kills. Come morning, you find him with necks snapped like chickens. Captain Volkov, 10-year recon vet, didn't blow it off as bunk. Comrade Major, he radioed his army intel chief. We've got word on an unknown armed outfit in the Tora Bora sector. Could be a rogue tribe, off the Muj leash. Check it. Reply crackled back. If you can turn him on the fighters, do it. March 15th. Volkov's team pushed into the Tora Bora Gorge. Wild country, sheer cliffs, caves yawning like traps, goat trails hugging sheer drops. Third day in, Scout Private Stepaniuk piped up on watch. Comrade Captain, tracks, but they ain't human. Volkov leaned in for a closer look. The prints were massive, but the weirdest part? They climbed a sheer cliff face, not along any trail, straight up the vertical wall, like the thing thumbed its nose at gravity. That night, the sentry shook the captain awake. Something's out there. Rocks incoming. Sure enough, pebbles rained down from the surrounding crags into camp. Small stuff, not lethal, but dead accurate. One pinged right into the stew pot. Another nailed the radio. Hold fire, Volkov snapped. They're testing us. Come morning, right on the trailhead outside camp, a Muj corpse from that very gang Cascade had been hunting. Neck twisted like a pretzel. Rifle snapped clean in half like a toothpick. Tied to the body, a note in Dari. Enemies of our friends are our enemies. They think we're on their side, Sergeant Mamedov marveled. Or want to use us like we're using them, Volkov shot back. The next 2 weeks, the strangest stretch of the Afghan war. Cascade pushed through the gorge, invisible allies clearing the deck. Muj outposts turned up with guards' necks popped like corks. Ammo dumps blew sky high at night. No trace of sabotage. March 28th, first face-to-face. Volkov jolted awake to a prickly sense of other. In the cave where the squad bunked, 3 of them loomed. Huge, fur-shrouded, but standing tall like men. Cradling captured Muj AK-47s. The eldest, silver streaking his chest fur, stepped forward and rasped in broken Russian. We help. You, Shiravi. Mujahideen. Enemy. Volkov rose slow. You understand Russian? A nod. Little learn. Long time, Russian man teach. Then thumbed his chest. Gore. Mountain man. You say, Yeti. Why help us? The creature paused, groping for words. Mujahideen come many. Noise, fire, kill. Mountain man take caves. You, Shiravi, go soon. Volkov got it. They saw beyond the tactical grind. Knew the Soviets were temporary. The fighters would stick around, turning the hills into their playground forever. What do you want? Teach weapons shoot. We guard home. And so kicked off the Afghan war's wildest chapter.
For 2 weeks, Sergeant Mamedov and Corporal Kozlov schooled the 3 Yeti on firepower. Quick studies, those beasts. 3 days in, they field-stripped an AK faster than some grunts. But the real eye-opener came from Private Stepanyuk, ex-biomajor dropout. Comrade Captain, they ain't just smart, they've got writing. Deep in the cave the Yeti led him to, drawings, symbols.
A whole comic strip saga. Iron birds, choppers, swooping in, fire people, Soviets clashing with the bearded ones, Muzh. And a map, detailed as hell, of fighter bases in a 100-click radius. How'd you know all this? Volkov pressed. The elder tapped his eyes, then ears. We watch, we listen. Mountains always tell us. The intel checked out gold. On the Yeti tip, Cascade rolled up the region's main weapons depot. The depot in the cave camouflaged so cunningly that aerial recon had missed it for years. On April 15, the team called in air support. But before the strike, Volkov warned the Yeti, "Get out, big fire coming." The elder shook his head. "We know, we ready." "Thank you, Sharavi." They shook hands, the human palms swallowed in that massive, furry paw. Then the Yeti vanished, melting into the mountains. After the airstrike, they found more than guns in the caves. In the deepest chamber, something surfaced that yanked General Gromov straight from Kabul. An artifact hoard. Hundreds of items of unknown purpose, stone and metal gadgets, ages defying all dating, and scrolls. Dozens of scrolls scripted in some alien tongue. "This ain't Mudge," the army staff colonel muttered. "This ain't human, period." Gromov made the call. Haul it all out, stat. And zip it. Everyone zips it. 2 choppers airlifted the hull. Where it landed after? Lost to the fog. Word on the street, still getting poked at in a black site NII under Novosibirsk. Captain Volkov's report read, "Deem it necessary to note assistance from local population in executing the operation." That was it. But in his private journal, unearthed after he bought it in Chechnya, 95, there was this. "They're smarter than us. Wiser. We fight 10 years and slink out losers. They've been fighting thousands, and they stay, 'cause it's home. They guard it any price. That cave? We found more than weapons. What we saw made the grunts sign NDAs good till 2050. April 26, 1986. Blast at Chernobyl Unit 4. In the first frantic hours, before anyone grasped the nightmare's scale, not just fire crews and grunts rolled into the hot zone. KGB Colonel Igor Vasilievich Semenov, overseer of bioprograms, caught a bizarre directive. Haul ass to Pripyat. Check status of Object Pelessier. Object Pelessier? One of the USSR's deepest black holes. Biostation 10 clicks from the plant, where since '78 they'd run ops on relic hominids. Yeah, they turned up in the Pelessier too. Locals called him Lesovicki, and kept him buried from the brass. But KGB sniffed it out, spun up a watch post. When Semenov hit the station, it was a ghost town. Staff yanked in the evac, but the enclosures busted open from the inside. The station chief, Dr. Viktor Pavlovich Kravchenko, hauled to Kyiv, spilled on interrogation. 2 days pre-boom, they got antsy. Howling, rattling bars. We figured spring fever, mating season. Then, morning of the 26th, 4 hours shy of the kaboom, they popped the cages. Didn't smash 'em, picked 'em, like they knew the locks inside out, and ghosted north. All 7. Why no heads up, Comrade Colonel? We tried rounding 'em up. Then, boom. Weird shit kicked off in the exclusion zone right away. Liquidators grinding on Unit 3's roof swapped stories. Shadows in the woods. Towering shapes, just watching the work. Warrant Officer Mikhail Tachenko, a dosimetrist, was checking radiation levels in the woods near Yanov Station on May 5th. His Geiger counter was off the charts, nearly 800 Roentgens. And then I spot fresh tracks. Someone had tromped right through the muddiest patch. The prints led to an old bunker. Inside the bunker, they found bodies. 3 corpses of things that looked like oversized apes. But the worst part? They were glowing. Literally glowing green in the dark. Academician Valery Legasov, who oversaw the cleanup, jotted this in his secret notes. May 27th. Samples brought in from the zone.
Impossible, but fact.
These creatures' bodies are running a process like photosynthesis, but feeding on radiation, not sunlight. They're adapting, evolving, right before our eyes. Come fall 86, organized hunts kicked off in the zone. A team under Major Alexander Petrenko combed the Red Forest, the patch that took the heaviest rad dose. October 7th, they hit Paydirt, an underground settlement. Old World War II catacombs housing about 20 specimens. But these weren't the escapees from the station anymore. Junior researcher Olga Dmitrieva, the biologist. They'd changed. Fur gone, skin thickened like armor plating. Eyes glowing in the dark. And they weren't fazed by the radiation, thriving where a human would croak in hours. Contact attempt? Epic fail. The things turned hostile. 2 liquidators caught heavy wounds. The mutants' strength was monstrous. They're defending turf, Professor Kravchenko explained. Radiation's their fuel now, and we're the competition. But the wildest bit dropped in December. A stalker crew, those were the bootleg zone intruders, stumbled on a bizarre scene. Regular Lesoviki, unmutated, facing off against their altered kin on a clearing by the Pripyat River. Stuff laid out between them. Rocks, branches, arranged in patterns. Stalker Sergei, goes by Marked, recounted it later. They were communicating. No words, just gestures, sounds. Like the normals were schooling the mutants. Or maybe warning them off. 1989 brought an incident that nearly sparked a second meltdown. A pack of mutated beasts slipped into Unit 2's turbine hull. They weren't smashing gear, they were studying it. One touched the control panel, and gauges spiked. Reactor power surged. Operator Vasily Ignatenko, last name like the fallen firefighter, killed it on instinct, scrammed the core. But a 1-minute lag. They get tech, academician Velikov said at the emergency sit-down. Not the logic, but cause and effect. And they learn. Fast. The last Soviet push into the zone went down in October '89. Led by KGB Major General Vladimir Krichkov. His report, which landed on Gorbachev's desk, read, "Anomalous hominid population in the exclusion zone. About 50 individuals, of which 15 to 20 have undergone mutation. The rest steer clear of the hot zones, but keep lines open with the mutants. Roundups not advised. The beings show signs of hive mind smarts and can mount organized pushback. But in a secret addendum, eyes only for 3 souls, there was one more paragraph. On the catacomb walls, a map. Chernobyl marked with a special sigil. Same glyphs dotted every Soviet and US nuclear test site. They knew ahead of time. That's when it clicked why the Yeti always ghosted humans. But Chernobyl flipped the script. The August putsch of 1991 caught Operation Leshy at a make-or-break juncture. A week before the Moscow Madness, Colonel Mikhail Sergeyevich Voronov's team nailed the biggest breakthrough in the whole saga. Deep in the Sayan Mountains, 200 meters down a cave, a library. Hundreds of stone tablets, etched with script they partially cracked. It was history. The history of a race shadowing humanity for millennia. But on August 19th, the colonel got the encrypted wire. Op shut down. All personnel returned to Moscow. Comrade Colonel, the expedition science lead, Professor Dmitriev, begged. 1 more week. We're on the cusp of the greatest find ever. Orders are orders, Voronov clipped. But he broke 'em. Instead of torching the docks, he stashed copies, buried them in the taiga, memorizing the coords. They didn't surface till 2010. Meanwhile, Moscow was a shit show. KGB archives torched, trucked out, hawked on the black market. Semyon Markovich Rubinstein, that very archivist who'd unearthed Folder 47, made the call that rewrote the tale. He didn't burn the Leshy files. He Xeroxed them. Nights on the dot matrix beast in the basement. Life on the line. 500 pages of crown jewel secrets.
December 27th, the day the red banner came down over the Kremlin. Rubinstein linked up with a guy flashing press creds for a Western rag. Meet in an Arbat flat. "How much you want?" the journalist drawled, American twang thick. "I don't want cash," the old keeper shot back. "I want truth. Publish it. Let the world know." But the docs never saw daylight. The journalist? CIA officer Robert McMillan. The haul shipped straight to Langley. Rubenstein clocked the double cross a month later, February 2nd, 1992. They found him dead in his apartment. Official? Heart attack. But the leak wasn't just Rubenstein's doing. Lieutenant General Oleg Kalugin, the defector, smuggled microfilms to the States. Colonel Tretyakov fenced stuff to MI6. Major Matrokin funneled archives through the British Embassy. By late 92, Western spooks had the Leshy playbook cold and fired up their own digs. But the real gut punch hit the eggheads. The Cryptozoology Institute spun up in 89. Come 92, funding dried up cold. Employees went months without paychecks. Dr. Maria Voronova, the very one who'd worked Tunguska and Chernobyl, hawked her archive to Japan's Mitsubishi Corporation for 30 grand. In it, one-of-a-kind DNA data on relic hominids. Professor Astapov bolted to the States on a Yale invite, packed along tissue samples and Almas language decryptions. But not everyone sold out the life's work. A ragtag crew led by Igor Burtsev spun up the Russian Society of Cryptozoologists. No budget, no state backing. They kept the hunt alive. Then, in 94, a weird walk-in. Guy named Alexei shows at Burtsev's door. Gray-haired, pushing 60, ramrod military posture. "I'm from the ones who know the truth," he says. "The program's not dead. It went dark." And not just here. Alexei spun a yarn that blew minds. Post-USSR collapse, intel outfits from Russia, the US, and China inked a hush-hush pact. Hands off the relic hominids. No poaching, just watch from afar. No meddling. "Why?" Burtsev pressed.
"'Cause they're tougher than we thought, and there's way more of them. Global count, about 10,000. They're networked, got comms we don't get, and what you'd call weapons." "What kind of weapons could primitives pack?" Alexei smirked. "Who said they're primitive? Maybe we're the primitives next to them? They don't build cities or crank out gadgets, but they boss the biosphere. Can spark a plague, steer animal migrations, hell, plenty more." "Proof?" He flashed a VHS tape. Satellite footage, 93, Yakutia, Indijurka River Valley. On it, hundreds of big primates marching in formation, like a damn army. "It's a migration, heading north, far from folks. But corner 'em?" Alexei clammed up, stood, and ghosted. Never seen again. 90s Russia was too busy clawing for survival to chase Bigfoot. But the oligarchs, overnight fat cats off the empire's carcass, had side gigs. Boris Berezovsky bankrolled a 96 Caucasus jaunt. Cover, docufilm shoot. Real play, bag a Yeti for his private zoo. The team rolled back a month later. Out of 15, 8 made it. The rest vanished in the peaks. Berezovsky never touched that kind of project again. Mikhail Khodorkovsky shipped a crew to the Altai in 98, led by ex-GRU Colonel Sergei Mironov. What they hauled back? Stashed in a special bunker under Moscow till Khodorkovsky's collar. Post-arrest, bunker cleared, files poof, gone. But the real kicker landed in 99. Days before Yeltsin's exit, his security chief, General Korzhakov, slipped a dossier to the incoming PM, Putin. "Vladimir Vladimirovich, this you need to know. Operation Leshy. Read it carefully and decide. Resume or bury it for good." Putin pored over it all night. Come morning, he said only, "We'll wait and see what time brings." But one document still slipped west, and that flipped the script. The doc that hit the west? A map, but no ordinary chart. Pins dropped worldwide, spots where the relic hominids convened every 12 years. Next meetup? 2012, Altai Mountains.
Vladimir Putin got the leak alert in 2001. A CIA source, an old contact from his Dresden stint, tipped him. Yanks gearing up for a big swing. "Mikhailich," the president leaned on Defense Minister Ivanov, "what's left of Operation Leshy?" "Next to nothing, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Archives half-torched, experts jumped ship, gears ancient history. Rebuild it, fast, but whisper quiet, dead quiet. The guy who nursed the program back to life,
FSB Colonel Alexander Nikolaevich Petrov, an ex-biologist who'd crossed over to spook work in the 90s. He was hooked on the contact dream with the relic hominids. New Russia's maiden voyage, 2003. Drop zone, Kola Peninsula, Lovazero tundras. Why there? Satbirds had pinged weird vibes. Crew, 5 FSB hard hats, 3 lab coats. Petrov ran point himself. What they unearthed? Blasted every Soviet tall tale. Holed up in a derelict adit from some played-out uranium pit. A crew of the beasts. But these weren't the Stone Age holdouts from old files. These packed tech. They're using tools, Petrov wired Moscow. Not caveman sticks, fancy metal jobs, unknown alloy. And get this, they've got juice. Electricity. From where? FSB General Patrushev barked, skeptical as hell. Bioelectric, like electric eels or rays. Low amps, but enough for their kit. Contact play? Half win. A young female they dubbed Ina warmed to him. Knew maybe 100 Russian words. Picked up eavesdropping on geologists' jawing. But the real scoop? Her folk were gearing for something huge. An event every few generations. She called it the time of meeting. 2007. Putin choppers into the Altai incognito. Cover? R&R. Fly fishing. Off books? Powwow with shaman Nikolai Orzhak, guardian of the old lore. They'll come in 2012, the shaman intoned. All of them. From every corner of the globe. Right here. Karakol Valley. Sacred ground. Why pick it? Every 144 years they vote. Pull back deeper into the wilds. Or parlay with us. Last round, 1868, they voted retreat.
This time, ain't nowhere left to run. Putin greenlit preps for contact, but the buildup, blacker than black. Even the Yeti day bash in Kemerovo back in 2011, PSYOP soft sell, easing folks into the notion they might be real. Kuzba's governor Amin Tuleyev, looped in on the hush, rolled out an international conference. Scientists from around the world rolled in, but it was all smoke and mirrors. While the press snapped pics at the conference, the real groundwork hummed 300 kilometers away in the taiga. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, who hailed from those very neck of the woods, personally oversaw the op. They trucked in gear, threw up camouflaged watch posts, and on August 5th, 2012, they showed. One by one, then pairs, then packs. By August 10, the valley teemed with about 300 specimens from across North Asia. Colonel Petrov and his crew glassed it from a safe perch. Unbelievable. This is a full-on Congress. They're talking, swapping stuff. Look, those are maps. They're drawing maps right on the ground. August 12, contact. 3 elders ambled up to the observation post. One of them spoke Russian. We know you're here. Known for a while. You watch. We allow it. But don't interfere. This matters. For everybody. Can we help? Petrov ventured. The elder went quiet. Long pause. Then, maybe. Soon. 2030, big trouble comes. For you and us. Must prepare together. What kind of trouble? Earth will change. Change big. We see signs. You see with machines, but don't understand. 2030. Last year of calm. The gathering dragged a week. Then they ghosted out, quiet as they'd arrived, but left a calling card. A stone slab etched with glyphs. Cracking it took 2 years. Warning of a cascade of natural disasters. And a survival playbook, drawn from a race that had weathered more than one global wipeout. New contact in 2015. This time, they came to us, in Moscow. Midnight run through a metro tunnel web even the builders didn't know about. Meet in the Kremlin bunker. Putin, Shoigu, Chief of General Staff Gerasimov, and 3 reps from their kind. What went down over 2 hours? Just the players know. But post-huddle, Russia kicked off a web of underground bunkers in Siberia. Official line? Nuke-proofing. The real story? Off the books. Then 2023 hit,
and that yanked the program back to full-state throttle. What went down in 2023 started with a Pentagon leak. Edward Mitchell, military intel analyst, dumped a trove of classified files online. Buried in them, Project White Shadow docs. Turns out, the US never quit the Yeti chase. Post-90s Soviet windfall, the program got a turbo boost and bleeding-edge toys. Spysats that could tag a single warm body from orbit. Drones packing thermals and DNA sniffers. Neural nets to crack the lingo. The Yanks threw modern science's full arsenal at it. And scored. Pentagon database, intel on 8,400 individuals worldwide. Habitats, migration routes, even family trees. But the real jaw-dropper? A file codenamed First Contact, detailing a meetup on March 15, 2020 in Alaska. A team of rangers ran into a family of snowmen in Denali National Park. But instead of charging or bolting, the creatures spoke up in broken English. Transcript from the debrief of Sergeant Robert O'Neill. He said, "We've been waiting." Just stood there, 3 meters tall, blanketed in white fur, talking in a human voice. Said his kind had decided, no more hiding. Time was up. The Pentagon spun up a special unit, the Committee on Interspecies Relations. While congressmen jawed about UFOs, the brass prepped in the shadows for first contact with an earthly non-civilization. General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, laid it out at a closed-door session. "Gentlemen, we're dealing with intelligent beings who know everything about us, and we know next to nothing about them.
They're stronger physically, tougher biologically, and maybe outpace us in grasping natural forces." The Chinese weren't twiddling their thumbs either. Their Tibet program, kicked off back in 2010, coughed up surprises. In the Kunlun Mountains, Chinese scientists stumbled on a full-blown underground city. Not ruins, a working metropolis, with ventilation, water systems, even lighting from bioluminescence. Home to about 500 of the things. Beijing's grab attempt? Total flop. The creatures hit back with ultrasound so intense soldiers' ears bled, had to pull back and pivot to talks. Spring 2024. First official sit-down. Totally off the books. Only the big dogs from top nations in the know. Venue, neutral turf at Vostok Station in Antarctica. Russian delegation, Putin himself at the helm. US side, Secretary of State Blinken. China, the vice chairman of the PRC. And 3 reps from the elder race, that's what they called themselves. The powwow ran 3 days. Then came the secret communique, eyes only for 10 souls worldwide. Sides hashed out a phased rollout, drip-feed intel on the parallel intelligent race's existence, prime public opinion by 2030. Official acknowledgement no later than 2035. But the meat? The elder race dropped the hammer on looming climate shifts. Not forecasts, dead-on dates and scales for the apocalypses. 2027, megaquake swarm in the Ring of Fire. 2029, magnetic pole flip. 2030, kickoff of a new ice age. "How do you know?" Putin pressed. "We've ridden out 4 such cycles," the elder replied. "We know the tells. You see 'em too, but won't face facts." Proof? They flashed an artifact. Stone disk, about 40,000 years old. Star map etched on it, with disaster markers. Every past hit synced with the science books. Elon Musk, looped in on the hush, rammed Starship into overdrive for Mars colonization. Not for bucks, for bailing out the species. His 2024 Himalayas trek? Bid to snag elder race biosamples for gene-tweaking future settlers. Russia fired up Project Ark, a grid of underground cities across Siberia. Officially, protection against nuclear war. In reality, shelters for the coming ice age. China is building floating cities. The US is relocating strategic assets deep into the heartland.
The whole world is gearing up, but the public has no clue for what. And the elder race? They're prepping too, but not for survival. They know how to endure. They're gearing up to play teacher. For the first time in 40,000 years, they're ready to share wisdom with the little brothers. In October 2024, a Russian military base in the Arctic clocked a mass migration. Hundreds of the creatures heading north. Satellites painted the same picture worldwide. The elder race's exodus to the polar zones. But it wasn't a rout. It was prep work. They're building shelters. Not for themselves. For us. Using tech rooted not in gears and circuits, but in mastering natural rhythms. A video from the base, leaked online by accident, blew up the internet. It showed a squad of white giants laboring side by side with Russian troops, erecting something massive under the ice. The Pentagon and the Kremlin hit back in sync. Computer graphics, fake as hell. But what spooked the Yanks most? That clip from the Russian outpost. Epilogue. A meet in the taiga. A retired colonel's confession. Krasnoyarsk Krai, November 2024. In a cabin on the banks of the Podkamennaya Tunguska, a journalist huddles with a man calling himself Colonel Mikhail Petrovich, the very same Korotkov who'd infiltrated the American expedition back in the 60s. A 92-year-old survivor of the USSR, the new Russia, and finally the truth's unveiling. He's spilling it all. We found their settlement in 1987, he kicks off, lighting a paparosa. But that's what I told you on the phone. I left out the kicker. We didn't just find a settlement. We found their capital. The journalist fires up the recorder. Where? Under Puturana. Puturana Plateau.
You know it, the most godforsaken spot in Russia. Down there, a kilometer deep, a city, a real city, thousands of years old, maybe tens of thousands. The old man hacks a cough, sips his tea. We went down, just the three of us, me, geologist Semyonov, and pilot Karpov. What we saw, still can't wrap my head around it, even though I laid eyes on it myself. Streets, houses carved right into the rock, and it all glows. Bioluminescence, the eggheads called it later. They farm these special fungi that light up. They live there still, about 3,000 of them. That's their Eurasian HQ. Got others, North America, under Kilimanjaro in Africa, even Antarctica, a network of cities across the planet. Why not report it? Why bury it? The old-timer chuckles. And you'd have reported what, Comrade General? We've got a civilization underfoot, older than ours by 40 millennia? They'd have slapped us in the nut house, or stood us against the wall for loose lips. We kept our mouths shut. But there were contacts. They're intelligent. Intelligent? You don't get it. They're not just smart. They're wise. Picture a kid and an elder. That's us to them. Loud, scrappy, dumb kids. The colonel stands, shuffles to the window. They know everything about us. Everything. Our wars, our power grabs, our greed. And they wait. They wait for us to grow up or self-destruct. You say they, but they have names. They call themselves the Primordials. In their tongue, it sounds like Talui. Us, they dub the Hasty Ones, 'cause we're always rushing. Rushing to live, rushing to die. You said they're waiting. Waiting for what? The old man turned, locked eyes with the journalist. 2030. They call it the turning. Every 12,000 years the planet resets. Glaciers, floods, quakes. Last time, humanity barely scraped by. Left us myths of the Great Flood. And they've ridden out 4 of them. 4 turnings their race has endured. They know survival.
Ready to teach us, if we quit slaughtering each other. Why spill this now? Time's up. I'm 92. Last man standing from that city. Semyonov went in 95, Karpov in 2003. I held my tongue while the prep rolled. Now, it's locked in. What's locked in? 2025, they announce it. Official. He'll go public.
Earth hosts a parallel civilization, dawn of a new age, cooperation or war to the knife. Up to us, humans. The old man eased back into his chair, poured more tea. You know the kicker? They ain't scared of us. Not one bit. I asked one elder, why so few of you? No weapons? He said, we've got time. You last 70 winters, we make 300. You fret tomorrow, we plan for the next turning. Your guns might drop our bodies, but not our line. Yours? You'll wipe yourselves out, unless you learn wisdom. 300 years they live. 300, minimum. Elders push 500. That's why their oral histories beat our written ones cold. To them, Ivan the Terrible's yesterday. Peter the Great just left the room. The journalist killed the recorder. Mikhail Petrovich, one last question. Personal. You believe cooperation's possible? The old man went quiet. Long beat, then fished a stone from his pocket. River pebble at first glance, but carved with symbols. Their elder handed me this in '87. Said, keep it. When the hour strikes, show your kin. The glyphs mean, peace is possible. So yeah, he said. I believe. Gotta. Otherwise, what was it all for? Outside, dusk crept in. Somewhere in the taiga, maybe close, the primordials prepped for the next meet with the hasty ones. A meet that had sealed both races' fate. They'll come for us, the old man murmured suddenly. Not to take us, not like that. To save us. When the turning hits, they'll emerge from their cities, lead the survivors to safe ground. Like shepherds. 'Cause for all our stupidity and savagery, we're little brothers to them. Family. And you don't ditch family. He rose, shuffled to the door.
Go, tell the world, let 'em know, we ain't alone, never were, and come 2030, it'll hit everyone square. The journalist stepped into the frosty night. Full moon hung over the taiga, and out there, in the woods thicket, ancient beings eyed the same moon. Waiting for the hour when Earth's two thinking kinds finally owned each other. Postscript. What do we know today? January 2025. While you were reading this story, the world kept changing. Satellites are picking up anomalous activity in the planet's most remote regions. Governments are rushing to build underground shelters. Billionaires are snapping up land in Antarctica. What's true in all this? The Soviet expeditions of the 1950s through the 1980s are documentarily confirmed. Professor Porshnev, academician Oberchev. Operations in the Pamirs and on the Caucasus. It all happened. The American program of Tom Slick. Historical fact. Expeditions to the Himalayas. The purchase of the Yeti scalp. Attempts at capture. All documented. China's research in Tibet continues to this day, though officially it's the study of high-altitude fauna. But the rest? Colonel Korotkov, a real person or a composite figure? The city under the Putarana Plateau. Fact or fancy? The meeting in Antarctica. Truth or fiction? The author has no cut-and-dried answers, but there are facts that make you think. Fact 1. All the major powers simultaneously kicked off massive underground shelter projects. Official reason, nuclear war threat. But the scale of construction outstrips any sensible need for radiation shielding. Fact 2. In 2023, the rhetoric on UFOs shifted sharply. Governments suddenly started acknowledging unidentified aerial phenomena. Prepping public opinion. For what? Fact 3. Geneticists have found traces of an unknown hominid species in modern human DNA. Neither Neanderthal nor Denisovan. Someone third. And these genes are active in Highlanders and far north dwellers. Fact 4.
Climatologists are clocking changes that don't fit global warming models, as if the planet's gearing up for something else, something that's happened before, many times over. And the final fact. Worldwide, people are reporting encounters with strange beings. Non-aggressive, harmless, just watching and waiting. Maybe the old shaman wisdom is right. We're not the sole masters of the earth. We share it with those who came before us and who'll outlast us. 2030 will show if humanity's ready for this truth. And in the meantime, out there in the Altai mountains, the Siberian forests, the Caucasus caves, live beings we call snowmen. And they call us the hasty ones. And wait. Wait for us to stop rushing and start thinking not about tomorrow, but future generations. Not about profit, but survival. Not about war, but peace. Maybe this meeting of Earth's two intelligent species will kick off a new era.
an era when the wisdom of the primordials and the drive of the hasty ones merge for one shared mission: keeping life on this rock going strong. Or we stay blind and deaf to the warnings, and the primordials ride out another apocalypse in their hidden underground cities, while all that's left of our so-called civilization is rubble and campfire tales. The ball's in our court. Time will tell. 5 years to go. Final note: this tale's a work of fiction, built on real historical events, docs, and eyewitness yarns. The author pulled from open sources, declassified files, and straight-from-the-source accounts. Some names got swapped for safety's sake, some plot beats filled in from the gaps in the record. But the big takeaway? It doesn't budge. We've got to brace for the truth. We're not solo on this blue marble. How we handle that bombshell? That's what'll make or break our species. Buy it or brush it off. Up to you. But keep this in mind. 50 years back, folks yapping about government cover-ups on UFOs got slapped with the tinfoil hat label. Nowadays, it's straight-up official gospel.
What else they've got buried? We'll know soon enough. Real soon.